Hello, Don in London. It's May 16th, cloudy morning here in London, UK. My video is all about recovery from addiction to either substance or behaviour, or both in my case. My addictive substance, alcohol, my behaviour equally addictive about being in the right place, with the right people, doing the right things, and having the right things. Wanting, wanting and wanting. Yes, alright, pain in the neck. Wanting all those things and realising in the end I didn't need them. Even these days I can want things and not need them. It's part of the addictive personality, maybe, for me. I can only speak for me and my recovery, and it's one day at a time. Why? Well, because that's what I've learned. I only live in one place, and that's today. So if I can keep balance in my outlook, my attitudes and behaviour, and be myself as much as possible. But then again, who am I? Well, good news, I'll know more about who I am by the end of the day, and that's all good. So, recovery from addiction to alcohol. Yeah, 30 odd years of drinking, not recommended, not by me anyway, but I would recommend that those who can drink go ahead with impunity if they are able to drink with impunity. But I know that drink took the edge off me, and I became dependent and then a heavy drinker, not realising just how badly I needed that in my life to make my life work for me. So making life work rather than living life as it is. So trying to be something probably was at the cause or the root of my problem. And these days it's much easier to live life in the moment. So what helped me along the way? Well, family, friends, medical people kept me alive long enough to get a moment of clarity when it got to what is called the jumping off point for me, live or die. And to live I needed help, and that's what I realised. I could not beat drinking alcohol and being addicted to it on my own. I don't know I've beaten it. All I need to know is I'm in recovery one day at a time. So the great news for me was to find the fellowship, or the fellowship of AA found me, Alcoholics Anonymous. And I'm extraordinarily grateful that my family did ring up AA, who said, let him find his way. Because unless I could find my way to the doors of AA, and then stick around long enough, and I didn't in the first instance, stick around long enough to realise it was okay not to drink one day at a time, and that's all I had to do. So if I could get sober, the rest of my life could work. And the good news about AA is everybody is unique and authentic. Everybody is equal. It's an anarchic democracy where we all agree or disagree and find our path. But one thing is crucial: sobriety comes first in all decision making. So the fellowship of AA is simply about sobriety. So the rest of life, and whoever we are, we can get on with it. And that's how it works. So I share in my videos the AA preamble, which is what we hear at the beginning of any meeting, hopefully. And it sets the tone, if you like, for what is AA. And then I'll cover something about step 5, which is part of the 12-step program for a person to find out how to be open, honest and willing to live life sober. So AA, the preamble. Alcoholics Anonymous is a fellowship of men and women who share their experience, strength and hope with each other, that they may solve their common problem and help others to recover from alcoholism. The only requirement for membership is a desire to stop drinking. That's it, a desire to stop drinking. No rules or regulations or laws. There are no dues, and this is also true. There are no dues or fees for AA membership. We are self-supporting through our own contributions. AA is not allied with any sect, denomination, politics, organisation or institution, does not wish to engage in any controversy, neither endorses nor opposes any causes. Our primary purpose is to stay sober and help other alcoholics to achieve sobriety. So the good news in that statement is very clearly AA is not allied with anything, but also the good news is you can have all your alliances and affiliations and share about them and how they impact on your life, wherever you happen to be, inside or outside a fellowship meeting. So it's not about changing people to a different point of view in terms of their faith or belief. It's about exploring the possibilities of sobriety one day at a time, without interfering with your personal, unique belief system. Now that's great, because it means that AA is open to everyone with a desire to stop drinking, and nobody's going to tell you what to do. All there are suggestions. So the 12-step program is suggestions, and the 12 traditions which hold the fellowship together are suggestions too, about how we conduct ourselves in fellowship. And that is always open to interpretation, and must never take away freedom of choice of the individual. That can be a hard one to understand, because if we take away the rights and responsibilities, faith or anything to do with an individual, then we undermine them as humans, and we can't do that. I say we, but I don't want to do that. That's not my way. And the spiritual path of living, which is key, means that we live in the moment of now. And of course everything is spiritual. So spiritual life is reality, bittersweet. It's full of good things and full of bitter things too. So it's bittersweet, and we get a sampling of both in our lives if we're lucky, and we live long enough. And the good news also is, if we're sober, we feel it as it is. And in sobriety I found, when my feelings fit the experience I'm having, I'm in the right place. And sometimes feelings are awkward because they're at extremes. We have extremes of feeling around certain events in our lives. So those are absolutely appropriate. And if we share about our feelings, we have a better chance of understanding and getting wisdom on how other people have handled maybe similar but different situations themselves. That's the beauty of fellowship. Wisdom always on tap. We may not like it, because sometimes it's just unpalatable, like stopping drinking. So the good news, I think, is, I feel more than anything, is that life starts to work again in recovery. But it takes time, and I've noticed over the last few years big differences in how I approach life. I'm not in charge, I'm not the major player, I'm just me in my life, as it is today. And I have lots and lots of affiliations, which is absolutely marvellous. So, what's helped me? Well, this book here, the 12 Steps and 12 Traditions, is a keystone of learning how to live life and experience all the emotions and have a spiritual understanding of what's going on, and even an understanding of God for me, which for me is truth, love and wisdom. The absolute truth, unconditional love, and wisdom which comes from other people. So God is truth, love and wisdom in my book, in my heart. It may be different for another person. Absolutely. I reckon it is, because there are 6.5 billion people on the planet and 6.5 billion lifetimes of experience going on. So it would be surprising if everybody thought and felt the same way about God. Or no God, being an atheist or agnostic. And each position a person takes in relation to that is their own choice, freedom of choice, I hope. In my world, that's how I'd like it to be. I know it's not for some. But the other thing, this book, Alcoholics Anonymous, big book, full of experience of other people. I identified with so much of what's written in there that it started to make life possible. But in the early days, in my first 90 days, I was so confused. I was just trying to make sense of what is it to be sober. My head felt heavy with everything flooding in from the past. So every emotion was over the top, every feeling was over the top, and my idea of spiritual was non-existent. My whole life was scratchy, irritable and unhelpful, and drink was always attractive because it did what it did. Afforded oblivion from reality, and now I don't need to. So there are lots of ways to get sober. AA is not the only way, but it works for me. I'm not an example, we're all examples of how life can work. And I was reading from the 12 Steps and 12 Traditions, step 5, all about sharing our personal inventory, our life story with another person, so we can find out what in the past has made us drink and what in the present may make us drink. And step 5 is really an expression of maybe secrets or things that we felt we could never tell another human being. And in the process of sharing with a person that we trust, we open the door to being open, honest and willing to keep on changing and doing something about living reality a day at a time. So in step 5, page 61, I was just looking at this. It says here, until we actually sit down and talk aloud about what we have so long hidden, our willingness to clean house is still largely theoretical. We are honest with another person. It confirms that we have been honest with ourselves and with God. The second difficulty is this: what comes to us alone may be garbled by our own rationalization and wishful thinking. The benefit of talking to another person is that we can get this direct comment and counsel on our situation, and there can be no doubt in our minds that what that advice is. Going it alone in spiritual matters is dangerous. How many times have we heard well-intentioned people claim the guidance of God, when it was all too plain that they were sorely mistaken? Lacking both practice and humility, they had deluded themselves and were able to justify the most arrant nonsense on the ground that this was what God had told them. It is worth noting that people of very high spiritual development almost insist on checking with friends or spiritual advisors the guidance they feel they have received from God. Surely then a novice ought not to lay himself open to the chance of making foolish, perhaps tragic blunders in this fashion. While the comment or advice of others may be by no means infallible, it is likely to be far more specific than any direct guidance we may receive while we are still so inexperienced in establishing contact with a power greater than ourselves, which is probably through our good conscience, if we have one. So, as we know, a lot of people say they are representing God on earth. I take a holistic view that good conscience of the many, there is some moral code in us from birth, I guess, which can be either amplified and worked on or distorted by events, history, and in my case a lot of booze. Inherently though, I do feel I was a good person and have a good conscience, but it doesn't make me infallible. I need help. I need to be able to listen to the world and what it's telling me, the wisdom of others, being loved by other people and accessing the truth. So I know in my head I'm full of faith, belief and whatever I believe it, but at the same time it needs to be informed by the wisdom of other people. And this is where step 5 helped me a lot, letting go the horrors of my past by sharing them with another human being and getting perspective on them. Oh yeah, that reminds me, I was when I do my videos, when I put them on YouTube, I put all sorts of other stuff on it as well. What goes with it? So for today I put love people and hate their behaviour. It's been an important understanding for me. I can love, forgive and not diminish another person when they behave badly. So when we love people, or generally have love for other people, which is unconditional, we don't need to diminish them and say, I'm not going to love you anymore because you behave badly. You can actually say to them, I love you, yet at the same time when you behave this way it gives me problems. So love people, hate their behaviour, or love people and ask them about why you're behaving like this to me or them. So we do have a moral conscience and maybe a code of practice around how we deal with each other. And I can love, forgive and diminish and not diminish another person when they behave badly. This opened the door to further understanding humility, and humility for me is the ability to keep on learning life. If I can learn from my mistakes, forgive and move on, then I've got compassion, and compassion is key in all aspects today. So when a person does something which is harmful to me or harms me and hurts me, I don't need to write them off as a human being. Maybe I need to say, this is hurting me, and assert what's going on. So maybe I can get to a place of empathy. And I need that compassion, especially when people are new, or when people actually say, you know, this is what God is telling me to do. And actually it's not God telling them, it's their inner being saying, I need this, I want this, and I'm determined to make the world my way. In fact, it won't be. Never can be like that. It's all about agreement, inclusion, and shared control, not being in control of others. And the other one, overdoing, underbeing. Early days about thinking and looking right. Better days starting simply to feel right. We start thinking and doing recovery. Then we graduate to living and being in recovery just for a day. This one always. Yeah, overdoing the steps. Overdoing everything to try to be perfect. And getting nowhere and feeling frustrated by the whole thing. Stop doing so much is often the answer. To sit long enough to find out, what am I feeling right now? And it's the frustration and impatience of not getting to serenity. It takes a while. And then on sharing our history, the good, the bad, the ugly, this is step 5. We see cause and effect. We see our part in all matters to do with people, places and things, and the consequences for ourselves and others. Willingness to forgive ourselves and every human is key to living in the moment of now. And that is really important to me. There was something else. Yeah, I've got some quotes about forgiveness. And Oscar Wilde said one quote which I quite laugh at, but it's also how we are sometimes when we feel like we need retribution. Forgive your enemies, nothing annoys them so much. And then Indira Gandhi said, forgiveness is the asset of the brave, or words to that effect. Because forgiveness is all part of life, forgiving the way we are, ourselves, and where we've been and what we've done, in order that we can forgive others as well who may have been involved, because with the 12-step program it's all about self-judgment, keeping our side of the street clean and not actually condemning other people who behave differently to us, because if we do that we're in trouble. We're in trouble because if we're judging the world, then the world is still judging us, and we're not getting on with recovery, which is about emotional, spiritual and physical well-being as best we can be with where we are, who we are, and what's happened to us. So we do have the consequences of life. Never forget that. Consequences of life will keep on coming at us no matter what. So if we've done bad things and we have to pay a price, that's restitution. But how else would we get to a place of forgiveness for ourselves unless we do that? So for May 16, in the daily reflections, 1 step a month, we forgive. And it says here, often it is while working on this step, step 5, with our sponsors or spiritual advisors, because remember, who we share our step 5 with, that's our life story, is our choice. So it may be appropriate for an advisor, spiritual person outside the fellowship, or you feel most comfortable doing it with a sponsor within the fellowship, or simply somebody that you trust outside in terms of confidentiality, because we need to learn to trust. Sponsors or spiritual advisors that we first felt truly able to forgive others. No matter how deeply we felt they had wronged us, our moral inventory had persuaded us that all-round forgiveness was desirable. But it was only when we resolutely tackled step 5 that we inwardly knew we'd be able to receive forgiveness and give it too. So yes, love, forgiveness, all part of this spiritual way forward, living life to truth, love and wisdom. And at the same time we do have consequences for things we've done, which is about amends and restitution as best we can with what we have, and not harming other people in the process. So it all fits together, but it's difficult to do on your own, because how on earth can you sort out and judge yourself, or judge the behaviour of other people whilst being under the influence of drugs or addictions? And behavioural addictions are as bad as the substance addictions in this respect, because if we are in a place of addiction, behaviour or otherwise, attitude, then we are not in our right mind. So it takes a bit of time to get there, and we need to be forgiving and have the humility to keep learning how to get there. What a great feeling forgiveness is. What a revelation about my emotional, psychological and spiritual nature. All it takes is willingness to forgive. God will do the rest. And I feel that's right, because truth, love and wisdom, if we get to the absolute truth, and we understand not only why we do things, but why other people do things, then we find a place of forgiveness. Yet there are consequences, always, to the way we have behaved, and maybe the way people have behaved toward us. And society imposes its own consequences as well. So we don't live in cloud cuckoo land, or we don't live in a pink cloud where forgiveness means we have a clean slate and no consequences. We may get to a clean slate and still have consequences that we need make restitution in whatever way we can. Yeah, the steps are difficult, but become part of the way we live our lives. So part of my morning understanding is always, step one, I am powerless over alcohol, and if I take a drink, life will get unmanageable. And also, if I try to be perfect or think that I know better, life is going to get really unmanageable because I start judging the world whilst it's judging me. Another point, step two, I can be restored to sanity on a daily basis, but life experience tells me that things can drive me bonkers again. So having a place to go, like a meeting or to a fellowship friend, to get help and support is always key. So all these things are always working in the day. So step one, powerlessness. Step two, restoration to sanity. Step three, letting go and letting good things happen. Letting go the idea I know best. Letting in the good of others, who probably have a better perspective on my life than I ever will. And those three steps are part of my maintenance package in the morning, if you like. And I also say to myself, I am responsible when anyone anywhere reaches out for help. I want the hand of AA always to be there, and for that I am responsible. So locally, in my own community, if I can do something to help, I will. But I also know that across the world there are groups, people, all there to be helpful as best they can. And don't forget, sometimes when somebody is doing their best for us, it feels like the worst thing in the world. So forgiveness is key again. So step 1, 2 and 3, I am responsible, and that serenity prayer said at any time of day when life is going well as when life is tough, helps me with my own perspective, whether I'm helping another person, trying to resolve a situation. It tells me sometimes I just need to get help. So to God or to good conscience, this serenity prayer and meditation really is the key. It's the thing which amplifies my need to be human. God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference for me, always, in the moment, and just for today. Don in London, hello. My video is all about recovery from either addiction to substance and behaviour. My substance, alcohol, my behaviour. Trying to be perfect, I guess, and never so. And workaholic, relationshipaholic, all the holics, gym, health, you name it, food. You get the picture, I hope. I forgot to tell you what the date is. It's May 16th, 2009. And been a good day so far. I've received some messages of encouragement. And also my immediate family who live close by are coming back from their holidays, so I don't have to mind houses anymore. Oh, that's a relief. But it's also strange when you go into somebody's house, even if you're just making sure the plants are watered and the garden's straight, trying to, I don't know, it's almost like they've gone, and it's a very eerie feeling that the essence of somebody is missing. And I guess that was me in my drinking days. The essence of me, the being of me, was missing in action, and the action was drink, often, or work, or relationships, and trying to please, and pleasing nobody really, because I was never there long enough, and I was always back with my best friend on my own, isolated into the night, most likely, with glass in hand, or in the latter days, a full bottle of some spirit or other, which would just see me off into oblivion, and hopefully not to wake up the next day. What a way to live, and it was awful, and it went on for far too long. So addiction takes us to very, very sad places, depressive places, and along the way it was probably quite fun, until it became masterful over us, or whatever the addiction. Anyway, I go to AA, Alcoholics Anonymous, which keeps me on a fairly level playing field. And I don't speak for AA, can't, won't, never will. I can speak about how it helps me be myself, unique and authentic. And the absolute truth of people who go to AA is they're unique and authentic when they go in, and they're unique and authentic when they go out into the world on a daily basis to make the best of what is, and try to fit with what is, rather than wish it was a different way. And other conversations I've had over the last day or so have been about overdoing it and underbeing it. We can all overdo things when we're feeling fearful, not quite right, in an anxious place, some sort of panic going on. We don't feel quite right, so we overdo things, and overdoing means we're stuck in actions and probably going round and round in circles in our head, wondering why life is just so blinking difficult. Underbeing, being ourselves, not being able to see what is in front of us. So the human being gets an opportunity to make choices in the moment rather than be driven by action. So where do I fit in this? I can overdo it, overdoing, or I can be underbeing, not being myself enough to make a difference to my life and what is going on in it, and anybody else's life I may touch. So, sobriety is a really strange thing. It makes us realise we've got to keep on learning till we take our last breath. And the odd thing really is we start to relish being in the moment, because it's less fearful in the moment. We don't know what the future is, and we don't have to look back and stare at where we've come from. But before we get to the place of not looking back too much or staring, we need to do our fearless moral inventory, which is step 4 in the 12-step action program of the fellowship, and then share it with another human being and God, or your good conscience, in step 5, which is for me May, in one of the books I share here on my YouTube videos, and it's Daily Reflections, this one. I haven't told you about the preamble yet. This preamble, which we share at every meeting. Sorry, this is a bit disjointed this morning, just like my head. Anyway, not overdoing, more being is what I'm looking for. AA, what is it about? The fellowship. Alcoholics Anonymous is a fellowship of men and women who share their experience, strength and hope with each other, that they may solve their common problem and help others to recover from alcoholism. The only requirement for membership is a desire to stop drinking. There are no dues or fees for AA membership. We are self-supporting through our own contributions. AA is not allied with any sect, denomination, politics, organisation or institution, does not wish to engage in any controversy, neither endorses nor opposes any causes. As a fellowship, our primary purpose is to stay sober and help other alcoholics to achieve sobriety. So it only has one primary purpose, that's to be sober. And the 12 steps of action, which I mentioned, it's all about attitude and behavioural change. So, it's not out there in the mysticism of spiritual. What is spiritual in my program? It's the ability to see truth, the reality of now, and be in the moment, rather than worrying about the past or where I've come from or where I might be in the future. The future hasn't happened yet. So the gift for me is to be in the moment, and I speak for myself, not for AA. But if I didn't really mention AA, it would be unfair on the fellowship, because the fellowship is the reason why I'm still here, and I don't forget that. So when I'm talking about step 5 in the daily reflections, it's all about sharing our moral inventory, of our fearless moral inventory of ourselves, what we resented, what we feared, what defects we have, what assets we have. So it's not all a bad gloomy picture, and the sooner we do these things, the more we can put these steps into practice, because a 12-step action program is no good if there's no action. But again, we mustn't overdo it. We need to make gentle progress and learn and understand we are experiencing the steps and how they work in real life. So in the daily reflections, the one for today, this is the one I really had a problem with, because I thought I did it all the time. It says we forgive for May 16th. Often it was while working on this step with our sponsors or spiritual advisors that we first felt truly able to forgive others. No matter how deeply we felt they wronged us, our moral inventory had persuaded us that all-round forgiveness was desirable, but it was only when we resolutely tackled step 5 that we inwardly knew we'd be able to receive forgiveness and give it too. So it's a two-way street. Yeah, we can't not forgive people and forgive ourselves. And if we're forgiving ourselves, we must forgive everybody, everything. Because even when people do their worst, they're trying their best in their own eyes. So what a great feeling forgiveness is. What a revelation about my emotional, psychological and spiritual nature. All it takes is willingness to forgive. God will do the rest, all good conscience. Or God works through people, you know, and all it takes is willingness. Oh, blimey. And the trouble is we all set such high standards for everybody else and ourselves that we can never get there, so we always feel somewhat disappointed, maybe. So there is a middle road in all of this. And as Bill sees it, another one which I use, there are daily readings, or you can just read as many pages as you like, because it doesn't actually put it down to a particular date. So I'm doing these linearly. So it says principle before expediency, page 103. Most of us thought good character was desirable. Obviously, good character was something one needed to get on with the business of being self-satisfied. What a proper display of honesty and morality. With a proper display of honesty and morality, we'd stand a better choice of getting what we really wanted. But whenever we had to choose between character and comfort, character building was lost in the dust of our chase after what we thought was happiness. we soon find out that happiness is quite different to what we thought it was. Happiness is not drinking anymore for me. Seldom did we look at the character building as something desirable in itself. We never thought of making honesty, tolerance and true love of man and God the daily basis of living. How to translate a right mental conviction into a right emotional result, and so into easy, happy and good living, is the problem of life itself. And you know, I went to a meeting last night which is called Courage to Change. And that sentence, or those three words, courage to change, is part of the serenity prayer, which is God grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. And in fellowship we learn it's spiritual and emotional and physical well-being, good measures we can employ for ourselves to see how we're getting along. And as we go along, you know, we can overdo things. Overdoing is putting into action without purpose, I guess, which means that we're underbeing in our spiritual, emotional and physical attributes. So when we are being ourselves, and we're being able to consider and reflect and share and understand and be included rather than excluding others or excluding ourselves, we get to this place of being ourselves, fit to make the right choices in the moment of now. That's all we can do. And you know, when we say, God, or in good conscience, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, courage to change the things I can, and wisdom to know the difference, it really is just for one day. Today, more later.